Welcome to Storytime with Gunny. This is our second installation, and this is brought to you by the Lance Corporal John V. Lutz Health Foundation. In case you weren't aware, June is Post-Traumatic Stress Awareness Month. What steps are you taking to manage your post-traumatic stress? So we have a couple tips. I'm going to let the Gunny take that away, and here he goes, the man himself.
Okay, PTSD, drink a lot. This is what we did for 30 years before they found it was PTSD. We came home and just drank all day, all night, and later on we were talking to the psychiatrist. They went, well, you were just self-medicating. I went, is that what it's called? See, I could have got out of a lot of trouble saying, I'm sorry, I was just self-medicating. But most of my friends came home and really drank hard, and that's all we had. We didn't have anybody to talk to. The VA didn't have anything to do with us. And so PTSD has come a long, long way, and I'm really glad to see that people are taking it so seriously that they're now making a month awareness of it. But for those of us who have lingered with it and had it our entire 51 years now, I've been suffering from PTSD. I didn't even know I suffered from it until 2008. So I was living in the blind. And my men suffered, and I knew that they had seen psychiatrists and they were having been treated and stuff, but I always assumed, well, I understand they have it, but I can't have it because, I was a platoon sergeant. Platoon sergeants don't get that shit. Well, guess what? I got it bad, and I mean real bad. So I'm very, very keen on PTSD and what we have to do. And the very first thing is we have to be aware of it. Do you know how many guys suffer from it and don't know? That's the biggest challenge. And you would think that the VA, of all the organizations in the world, would know that it's really important and that it should be looked at and people should be treated for it. And yet just a couple of years ago when I was in the hospital, I had 23 doctors in a room. And my doctor said, go ahead and talk to these people about being in the VA as doctors. And so I said, just real simple question. How many people in here know what PTSD is? And the only doctor that raised her hand was the psychiatrist. Nobody else ever heard of it. They're working in a VA as doctors and have no concept of what the patients are going through and how to treat them, how to talk to them sensibly, how to get them to be relaxed. They don't do it. They don't know any of that. And so I literally went on, a whole crusade in the hospital about educating the doctors about you need to understand when you look at the hospital outside, it says VA. That means Veterans Administration. Veterans. Veterans of foreign wars, veterans who suffer from PTSD. No one, and I mean no one, knows how to deal with it. Not even the VA. You would think the VA of all hospitals would know how to do it. They don't even pay attention to it, except on the 5th floor where you go for PTSD. When you're doing your 14 weeks in the hospital. But except for the B area on the 5th floor of the hospital, no one in the hospital is aware. So you can see what you're trying to change here in America is a mindset of people who are walking around completely unaware of what's going on. And we know these young guys are coming back and gals are coming back from overseas and they're suffering from PTSD. I call it PTSD because I'm old, but she calls it PTS. Because Janine's a little sharper at this than I am. But it makes no difference whether you call it what you call it. If you're not aware of it, how do you begin to treat it? Yeah. And not with just psycho. All they want to do is hit you with meds. Take this, take this, take this, take this. That's not the way you want to be treated. And one of the things I found out in my very early stages of the PTSD classes we were taking was that one day the psychiatrist wasn't there. She had to go take care of something. In that room with 13 Vietnam veterans sitting in a circle, we did more talking and made more sense of it all than we ever did with a doctor in the room. It was the most amazing thing. I remember it so well because there was a gentleman in there. He was a black gentleman. He had a really cool beard. He had 3 master's degrees. This was not your average walking around dumb grunt. This is a sharp guy. And he was there for 8 years, every week for 8 years, and never spoke. Never said a word. He just sat there and absorbed it. So the lady leaves the room, psychiatrist leaves the room, and we start talking. And he goes, the scariest day of my life, it was the most amazing story. He says, the 3rd time I was shot in Vietnam, I was near Platoon. We were up in the mountains. and we're up pretty high. And the helicopters are coming in to pick us up, and they're flying below us. And on the top of the helicopter, he could see the red lights blinking. He said, he made us wet ourselves laughing. He goes, "Don't shoot the red lights." He became our hero because this is a guy who not only got wounded 3 times, but who understood, turn those lights off when you're coming to get us because you're flying down below where the enemy is. That was really incredible. But when we started laughing with him, his life changed forever. His life literally changed at that moment because he was talking to a group of guys who suffered exactly like he did with all the exact same things that go into it, and without having it broken down by a psychiatrist to try to tear it apart. We just talked like brothers. And it was a grand meeting. She came back about 30 minutes later, and we were having the best time of our lives. She walked in, and it was like a freezer door opened. It got deadly quiet in the room again. You know, it's like she has to pull something from each person in the room to get them to talk. But when we're together, we don't need that. And I don't know this for sure, but when Janine began the Buddy Up program, I don't know if she understood how powerful that is to just be in a room with like-minded individuals, and we help each other all the time. We don't have to put on our doctor's hat. We don't have to take out notes from, the PTSD experts. We do it together. We love each other and want to keep each other alive because it's important. Because anytime somebody takes their own life, that is a total waste of everything. And the only people who hurt are those that aren't dead, because they're hurt forever. And we all have to deal with these kinds of things. It doesn't happen in just a void. It doesn't happen in just 1 or 2 people. But it happens with a preponderance of people who are coming back from combat. But here, just recently in the news, I noticed that 3 policemen committed suicide from the same town. And so it's out there, and it's big. And it's sort of like, well, everybody's doing it, so I'll get in on it. I don't think that's the way you want to go. Life is precious to me. Every single time I'm in the VA and I'm talking to one of the important people that know stuff, because they wear white jackets, so I know they're important. And they'll ask me the same question over and over. Do you ever think of committing suicide? And I go, are you out of your damn mind? Do you know how hard I had to run to stay alive in Vietnam? Do you know how many machine gun bullets came at me? Do you know how many mortars I had to dodge? Do you think that I did all that so I could off myself? I would never think of suicide. It's not in my makeup. It's not in my DNA. And many of my men are the same way. We fought hard to stay alive. I don't know why other people see it as a venue. Why is it on the chart? But I'm amazed how many times I'm asked that question. Every single time I see a new doctor. I say, Mr. Parsons, you depressed? Do you ever think of killing yourself? And I go, shut the fuck up. And I talk to them that way because they're idiots and they need to be talked to that way. Why would you ask me that question? How about you? You ever think of killing yourself, Doc? Maybe you should. It's just interesting how the moment you're a veteran and you're a combat veteran, and God forbid you suffer from anything like PTSD, or PTSD, whatever I want to call PTSD, if you suffer from it, you're supposed to be fragile. You're supposed to be wanting to end it all. It's not true. It's just not true. I'm serious. There are so many people who love life, who love every minute of it. I'm 71 years old. I have a half of a foot. I have to walk with a stupid cane, and I have a prosthetic on my left side when I don't have a foot. And I don't see that as a negative. I just see it as it is. Because when I'm not walking with a cane and I get on my motorcycle, I'm golden. I'm going. I'm down the road, and I drive all day on my bike because I love it, because it's a total freedom. And yes, I got to get off and get a cane to walk in, to use the head, or to go get gas. But when I put the cane back in my belt, I'm gone. And so I live for the things that make me free and happy. Riding my bike makes me free and happy. And of course my children. I have, so many boys that I'm overly blessed. And I have to deal with problems just like everyone else. I have a boy who almost died on March 9th, or March 11th, excuse me. And the fact that he's alive is just a miracle. Yeah. But I have to deal with it. I don't let that depress me. It's a blessing to have my son still alive. That to me is all that matters. He's blind now from the accident, but he's alive. It's just a handicap. We'll work around it. You understand? And some people would say, oh, that would be terrible to be blind. Yes, it is. Just ask my son. He'll tell you how terrible it is. But he's alive. And last night he was playing Dungeons and Dragons with his brothers. I had my 25-year-old there, my 19-year-old there, and I had my 46-year-old playing from Washington and my 44-year-old playing from over the other side of Florida. And they were all on the phone and all on speakers and talking, and they were having a ball. And the reason that they play it is because it involves Colin being able to play it. Don't need a computer, don't need to type, just done verbally and reading and throwing dice and stuff. And to think that they love doing that. And I get to sit in the other room as a father and listen to them go around and back and forth and laugh and giggle is just a blessing. So if somebody thinks that the old guy is going to get so comfortable one day that I'm going to off myself, they really have been smoking from the wrong hookah. Okay? So PTSD can be looked at from a standpoint of you do this, you do this, you do this. But in essence, it's what do we do with each other. Now, I can't talk to somebody who's my neighbor about PTSD. What are you talking about? I can't even talk to most people in the VA about it. So try to imagine talking to a neighbor. But if I'm talking to a veteran, if I'm talking to a fellow Marine, if I'm talking to Kini, I'm talking to any person that I know, especially from the Buddy Up program, when I start talking, everybody knows that I'm part of the team. I'm in there. I'm part of the whole DNA of what we are. That's how you have to see PTSD. It's not going to go away by itself. And by the way, it doesn't really go away. You just have to learn to manage it. And then what are the triggers? And what aren't the triggers? For instance, with me, if I'm in a restaurant, and this has happened to me no less than 6 times, somebody will drop something on the floor, and I'm standing there. And I was at a Force Recon reunion just last year in North Carolina, and there was like 20-some people at the table. And they were working on the stuff over here behind the counter, and the woman dropped a big silver salad bowl, hit the tile floor, made a horrendous bang. I jumped out of my seat. Yeah! I was totally toast. I looked around and everybody's looking at me like, you're a really weird dude. But they don't suffer like I do. Loud noises set me off instantly. I don't have a choice. I don't get to say, oh, that was just a bullet. It doesn't happen like that. It happens instantly. A bang and I'm gone. A backfire. Somebody throwing a hand grenade, not hand grenade, a firecracker, anything like that. Hand grenades, I love hand grenades. But as long as I'm throwing them. The point is, so many things trigger me. When I'm in the store and I'm walking down an aisle in the supermarket and I'm looking at stuff and somebody comes walking up behind me, I lean up against the counter behind me and say, go, please. And they look at me and I go, go. And they look at me again and I go, don't walk behind me, please. And they, well, what's wrong with you? And I go, don't walk behind me. It's as simple as that. Don't walk behind me. I don't know why that bothers me, but it really does. And so I don't like people walking behind me. I don't like anyone standing behind me. So that's a trigger. It doesn't get me to go crazy, but I'm aware of it. Traffic, people trying to hit me on my bike, that sets me off. I mean, I go crazy when they try to cut me off. But, I have to learn to not want to kill them so bad. And I don't carry a gun because I probably would. So, it's the truth. I don't carry a gun because of that. I would really want to shoot the son of a guns. But I have to learn not to do that. I don't put myself in that situation. So I don't have a gun. I don't have to shoot anybody. I do want to pull them out of the car and beat their ass real bad. But in 2008, in March of 2008, I promised my psychologist in the VA that I would stop doing that. I was 62 at the time. And she said, if you continue to do that, I can't work with you. And she said, you have to promise me you will stop doing that. So I promised. And let me tell you something. I had to bite my lip many days because I promised to do that, and I didn't want to. But I did. I haven't done it yet. And it's been all these years, and I'm 71. It's 9 years since I did it. And it's important to understand that everybody has a trigger. Something. It'll be a smell, a sound. God forbid it's a sound and a smell together. It's like really bad. I was walking across an area at Eglin Air Force Base back in the 70s. And there was a friend of mine, Ron Hall, up in the second story looking out the window. We were refurbishing these barracks at the Eglin Air Force Base. And as I was walking across to get cinder blocks to put on this flatbed wheelbarrow, helicopters flew right over my head. 3 helicopters, Hueys. And I just sat there and I looked up and I'm looking at the Hueys and they were cooking Chinese food in the mess hall on the base. And I'm just standing there like, and Ron Hall calls across the yard, "It's okay, Jack." He made me laugh, but otherwise I was transfixed on the idea that I could smell Oriental food and the helicopters were flying over my head, and I had to try to process that. And, you know, you can't write that into a script. It either happens or it doesn't happen, but when it does, how do you respond? Fortunately, I had a friend there. And you see how friends really affect you, and they affect you in a positive way, and it seems like that. She's like, I think of all the things that have set me off in my life. When I first came back from Vietnam, I could not see a fireworks display on Memorial Day or 4th of July for 7 years. It took me 7 years to be able to watch fireworks. That's how scary they were to me. And people would do stuff to me. They would throw hand grenades, or not firecrackers, cherry bombs near me to see my reaction. And I would always dive over stuff. And I remember one time I was walking down the street, minding my own business, and this public service truck, the guys that work for the power lines, power company, come by, and they had a truck with about 8 guys in it. You know, it's called a crew truck, and they were pulling the telephone pole behind them on the trail, and the driver turned the ignition on and off, pow, and made the truck backfire real loud. And I dove under this bush and scraped myself all up on the stickers, and all I could see was his face in the mirror laughing his ass off. So I took off running, and I took every shortcut, every yard, when they crossed the tracks where they have to slow down, a mile away from where he did that, I ran up and pulled him right through the window and began to beat his face in with all of my power. And these guys started jumping off the truck coming after me, and I was just having a field day. They couldn't hurt me. Nothing that they could do could hurt me, because I was already past that. I was into let's die. I don't mind dying as long as I'm killing motherfuckers with me. That's how I was, and that's what set me off. He thought it was funny to make me dive under a bush. He didn't know I was a Vietnam veteran. He was just doing it because I was on the road by myself. But he found out that's not funny. I mean, I kicked his ass for that. I wanted to really end his life is what I wanted to do, but there was too many people trying to stop me. So I can tell you that it has an effect that's so radical that you don't think, you're not thinking about what's going to happen. There's no what's going to happen. It's like live or die. I don't care. And those things happen to you over and over throughout your life. It's been 51 years of those kinds of things happening to me. I mean, 3 guys threw a cherry bomb behind me and Dr. Byrne. Dr. Byrne was my best friend for 45 years. He was a Vietnam veteran. He was a MASH unit doctor, and he and I sort of grew up together. And it was actually July 4th, 1976. It was the bicentennial. And we were at a big party, and we were standing there at the grill. We had a big long grill. He and I were doing the hamburgers and the hot dogs for everybody. And some punks threw a cherry bomb behind us. And we both dove over the charcoal grills. Food, flames went everywhere, food went everywhere. And, we got burned. We were scared to death. And they were sitting on the step laughing. They thought that was funny. Doc Byrne was a pacifist kind of a guy. He was a doctor. I was a grunt. I responded as a grunt. I went over and grabbed them by the throats and began to punch their faces in, all 3 of them. I wouldn't let them get away. And people were yelling at me, and I just kept punching. I wanted to end them. There wasn't a thought in my head about what are you going to happen if you kill them. That doesn't happen. You're talking about somebody you have just scared to death, and you expect them to respond the way other people do. It doesn't happen that way. And so finally, my wife came over and whispered in my ear. She said, "Stop it, Jack." And I stopped because she had the power. and those guys were taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Their faces were really messed up, but they didn't press charges because they knew I would press charges. They had done that to themselves. These are the things that people do not understand when they're dealing with things like, why do people suffer a certain way? What causes these things to happen? I can tell you exactly what the fear begins with. When you lose control in a battle, when you're being mortared and you're stuck to the ground and the mortars are falling like raindrops, you have nowhere to go and nothing to do. That's a helpless feeling. And so PTSD comes many times just from the helplessness of the situation, which once you have it, it stays with you. It doesn't just go away. It doesn't just get up one morning and go, well, now we're done with PTSD. It doesn't happen that way. And then most people never get to actually talk about it the right way.
I never knew I had it.
Yeah.
Well, I never did. I didn't know I had it. It wasn't until I actually went to Battalion.
Yeah.
That I realized, that I had PTSD. The first time I ever saw anybody get shot in front of me, I was 8 years old. I was going to the grocery store with my grandmother back in New York, and it was summertime, and I remember these guys were playing dominoes by the park, and these two guys get out of a car. We're coming back from the supermarket with groceries, little kid and the old lady, and these guys get out of the car and they pump this guy full of bullets right in front of us. And I remember one guy turning around and pointing the gun at my grandmother and I, and realizing, I think in his mind, he's like, I'm not going to kill a old lady and a little kid. And they hopped back in the car and they took off. But that was the first time I ever saw anybody killed in front of me. I was 8 years old. And I remember being scared to go outside for a little bit. And then it just kind of, I was like, well, you're not going to go outside. And I think that was kind of the base of when it began.
It is.
And then over the years, I had friends that got killed, in the neighborhood. And, then I went in the Marine Corps and then, working in law enforcement for 27 years now. And being deployed and then working in Ground Zero for 4.5 months. It's funny how you were talking about how things trigger you. Like I'm going to New York this week for my daughter's graduation. My oldest daughter's graduating from a school. And my girlfriend wants to go to the World Trade Center, to the museum. Mm-hmm. And, she wants to do touristy stuff like that. And I get it because she's not from New York. But for me, that location, so the first time I went back to Ground Zero was probably about 4 years ago since I worked down there. And for me, when I go down there, I can still smell the smells. Like, I haven't gone to the museum. We can go to the museum for free because we work down at Ground Zero at the site. And I don't know, I can't bring myself to go to the museum to see those images and those things that will remind me of that 4.5 months, if that makes any sense. And I don't know. She wants to go do this, and I'm like, I want to do it for her, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about being there and being in that space and reliving those different things. But, something I'm going to have to kind of push through and see how I feel about it. And,
You must talk to her about it. You must tell her how uncomfortable you might be so that if you become uncomfortable and you want to take a walk outside, she'll understand it, okay? You got to talk about it. Yes, it's real. It's not going to go away just because you go in there and you play hard man. I'm going to do this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, step on your foot. I'm so tough.
And it's like you said, there's certain things that you do. We have like rituals. When you have PTSD, you have these rituals. Like I won't sit in a restaurant or anywhere where I don't have my back to a wall and I can see the doors. I have to see all the doors and know where every exit is in there. And I think maybe that comes from when I got in the shooting years ago, and I got shot and working undercover. And I think because of that experience, I was trapped in a room, and because of that experience, I think that's what reinforces that. Let people in law enforcement do that all the time anyway.
No, yeah, I understand that, but everybody, not just you, everybody who has PTSD has the same thing. That's one of the big ones. When I was going to my first counseling in the VA, it was so funny. They said, you're going to learn to sit in a restaurant with your back to the door. I broke into a cold sweat and went,
I can't do it.
You're dying ass, I'm not doing that. Because that was there's no way I'm going into a restaurant and putting my back to the door. It can't be done. So I found that really funny that they said that. But then literally, I would have to go and train to do that. I would walk into a restaurant, see a perfectly good chair up against the back wall. Nobody could get to me. And I'd come in and sit down with my back to the door. And it was hard the first few times. It was very hard. And then I just started doing it on a regular basis because I wanted to get better. I wanted to have one less thing that, drove me up a wall. And so I can do that now. I can walk into a restaurant and I can turn my back to the door and I don't give a big rat's ass who comes in. It doesn't matter anymore. But there was I swear to God, when you said that, I started to laugh to myself. Yeah, just go in a restaurant and sit down with your back to the door. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
The only way I could do that is if I'm with somebody else,
Yes.
and that other person has a gun.
Yes.
I know they have my back, but I can't do it. I've tried it. I've been out with people and they sit down. And I'm like, yeah, you got to sit on the other side. And they look at me like I'm crazy, but it's just something that I have to do.
Let me share with you how serious PTSD is. I served in Vietnam in 1967 and 68. I was in 3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon, then I was the 3rd Platoon Sergeant of Golf Company 27. And when I tell you I walked among heroes, I literally walked among heroes. These guys were salts of the earth. And each one of them who was in my original squad has come home from Vietnam and has lived with the same wife for 49 and 50 years now. All of them. I was the only loser. I got married 3 times. All my men were salts of the earth. They got married, stayed the course. But they suffered from PTSD so badly. I'll give you a few examples. The greatest corpsman I ever served with in Vietnam was Vinny Weisenberger. He was from Pittsburgh, still is, and his wife Nancy. They're a wonderful couple. They have 2 boys who live up in New England. And Doc, whenever we would go out on patrol, especially at night, if Doc was with us, we were okay. We knew that if something happened, he'd had our butt because he was great in battle. He was great. I put him up for 2 silver stars in a 20-day period. He's one tough son of a gun. When I was visiting in 2014 up there, we were getting ready. I went to his house and then we picked up Tommy Carr, who's also from Pittsburgh, and another guy from outside of Philadelphia, and we got together and drove up to Chicago to go to our squad and platoon's reunion. We called ourselves the 3rd Herd. And while I was there, we called him Doc Stubbs, by the way, Vinny. I still call him Doc Stubbs. I don't call him Vinny. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the hall light went on outside my room, and he walked by and he went down the steps. I thought, wow, that's weird. So I got up, because I'm always up at 3 o'clock anyway. We all get up at 3 and 5, 3 and 5, 3 and 5. That's when you hear this. That's when we get up. And so I go downstairs and I walk home. The front door, the screen door, no lock on the door. And he's got a front porch, and directly in front of his house is the football field. Directly at 9 o'clock is the high school, because the high school plays football in front of his house. So he gets out. He gets to watch all the games sitting on his front porch. Pretty cool. And then to the right is all woods. And he would go down and he would walk down this path into the woods. And I sat on the front porch and waited for him. And he came back at 4 o'clock. He came up, he didn't say a word. He sat down next to me on the porch. After 10 minutes, he said, I'm going back to bed. I said, okay. So he went to bed. In the morning, I got up. We were going to have breakfast. His wife was in the kitchen. Nancy's cooking away, and he's at the store getting a couple of things. I said, Nancy, how often does he go outside at 3 in the morning? She goes, he does it every night. I said, well, how long has he been doing it? She said, well, before I met him, they've been married 49 years at the time. Okay? You understand? That's how bad it is. And one time I asked him, I said, Doc, you saved so many lives. What drives you to go outside every night? He goes, I think about the guys I couldn't save. Do you understand? He saved a lot of guys' lives. But he can't undo those that died. And that bothers him every day. He is one tough son of a gun. So we're at the reunion, and there's a guy there. He's walking down the hallway. He can barely walk. His name is Brian Raymond. I haven't seen him since the first day of Tet, 1968, when he was wounded for his 3rd time. And they took him down the hill, and the truck disappeared. Never saw him again. And then I talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and then he came to the reunion. Well, 2 years before we had reunions, and I was in the VA hospital both times having operations, so I couldn't go, so they would talk to me on the phone. And I'm smiling, and I'm going, Raymond, and I'm real excited to see him, and he's walking like a zombie. And I go, Jack, what's wrong with you, dude? He goes, I just had a stroke. I said, what are you doing here? And he goes, I had to see you, man. I want to tell you, that's what brothers do. We went into this restaurant and sat down for the next 2 hours, and he began to tell me stories. And one that he told me that made me laugh so hard I almost wet myself was that he was sitting in his living room reading the newspaper. And his daughters, he has beautiful daughters, and their two friends were in the kitchen. And the girls, his girls, were talking to the other girls. He goes, what do you mean your dad doesn't check your doors and windows every night? Every night of his life. At 3 o'clock and at 5 o'clock, he wakes up. He checks all the locks on the windows and all the locks on the doors in his house and goes back to sleep. And the girls know because he comes in, he wakes them up when he's stumbling around doing this stuff. They couldn't believe these other girls' dads don't do that for them. To them, that was the norm. Do you understand? It was normal for daddy to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning and check the doors and locks. You understand? That's PTSD personified. When he told me, I laughed so hard because it's so funny. It's like, your dad doesn't do that. Your dads don't care. And those are the things that happen to us. I'm up every night at 3 o'clock, 5 of to 5 after. I'm awake. I don't know why. And then where I'm in the country, whether I'm in Las Vegas, California, Washington, Oregon, it makes no difference. I wake up at the same time. So do they. Because they used to hit us at 3 and then hit us again at 5. Because they knew you were tired and you were trying to stay up, and then you'd nod out and then they'd hit you again. And it would shock you. And so they did that when we first got to Vietnam. They did it all the time. And Raymond, all these years later, he left on February of 68. It's now 2019, and he still checks the doors and windows. Okay? And Doc is still taking walks out in the woods. And Tommy Carr, who just an incredible guy. He was an incredible Marine with me. And he was with me on May 7th when we took terrible ass whooping. And he later became the squad leader when I left. And he made sergeant. But one day he lost 5 of his men in the squad. You don't recover from that. You never, ever, 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 ever recover from losing 5 men. Tommy's an out-and-out hero to me. I love him. He's just one of the best brothers I've ever had. And yet he suffers every day of his life because he can't take that back. There's no do-over. Mine is May 7th. Of all the days I had Vietnam, May 7th is my day because I gave an order and my men stood up and charged. And they got shot to hell and back. And I couldn't save them. I can't undo that. I got to take that one to my grave. And people say, oh, well, time heals. Time doesn't heal dick. It plays in my head like somebody just turned on a movie. It plays in color, it plays in sound, it plays in smell and taste. It plays. And all the time. So we who've been there and understand what caused it is one thing, but dealing with it is something that's lifelong. It doesn't get easier because you don't know what the trigger is going to be that day. Whether it's just, I have a friend who was in Walking Dead. He was in the Leathernecks with me. And his road name is Hollywood because he went to San Diego, so he's got blonde hair. He's a really cool guy. He's a handsome dude, very sharp guy. And he got a Bronze Star in the 9th Marines. He was with the Walking Dead. And one day we were talking, just sitting talking. And I said, what triggers your emotions? And he goes, just seeing an American flag flying sets me off. Now, who'd have thought that seeing an American flag would set all of the things over and over in his heart? But that's his trigger. That's his worst trigger. And everybody I talked to who shared with me from their heart and from their soul what it was that drove them crazy about combat or afterwards, they always have one trigger that works more than any other. But try to imagine living in America and not seeing an American flag flying anywhere. I mean, geez, don't go to the Washington Monument because they're all around it. But that's sad. But that's what causes him to have the most horrible feelings, and it brings everything up from over there. And like I said, Doc Stubbs was the men he couldn't save, but he saved so many. I watched that guy with more machine guns firing than anybody can imagine, and he never paused. He went from man to man on that battlefield while they just shot green and red tracers at him from everywhere. Don't ask me how he lived. I do not know. But I wrote him up for a Silver Star for May 7th because he earned the Silver Star. And some punk in the rear with the gear and the beer decided, well, screw it. He's just an enlisted man. We'll just give him a Bronze Star. Because Silver Stars have to be awarded to the people who really rate it. You know, like the people who are sitting back in the rear on radio talking to you. I'm the commanding officer. Hey, I'm in a hole. You get shot at today? No. But I'm in command, so I don't get the Bronze Star. I get the Silver Star. And that has bothered me ever since I was in Vietnam. When men fight with all their heart, with all their soul, and give their all, and put their life on the line, over the top, and somebody says, man, that's not worth your Silver Star. Yeah. And I had Duke Mitten. Duke Mitten died in 2013. He was my best friend in Vietnam. Duke died of Agent Orange. It just ate him alive. And I spent 63 days in the Tampa VA hospital with him in the hospice. And when I tell you that guy suffered from PTSD, he suffered. He didn't even leave his house for years. He didn't have a driver's license for 20 years. He couldn't work, and all they would give him was 20% disability. I put him up for 3 Silver Stars. On the same operation, I put Doc Stubbs up for 2. They gave him a lousy Bronze Star. And I say it's a lousy Bronze Star because it's a download. It's like, wow, man, he wrote him up for 3. But one Bronze Star's good enough for him. You know, he doesn't rate all these. He did. He rated 3 Silver Stars. He's a hero's hero. And he suffered every day of his life after Vietnam. Never got over it. And the reason he didn't is because he's one of the most caring, loving people. And he couldn't handle watching people get killed. He just destroyed him. He couldn't deal with it. And so he came home and he was just a lost soul, living in a bunker. He called it his bunker. He stayed in the house, lived in his house. And then one day I called him. I got his number. I didn't know he lived in Lakeland, Florida. I'd have got over there and kicked his ass, but I didn't know. 29 years after I seen him last time, I picked up the phone and called him. You want to talk about a great conversation? That was a great conversation because we both cried. I said, man, I've been in Fort Lauderdale for years. Why the hell have you been hiding? And then he called me one day and said, I'm in the hospital. I have stage 4 cancer. And he went and took a nap. And I jumped on my motorcycle and flew from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa. Backed my bike in, went upstairs on the 3rd floor, walked in his room. He woke up and I was sitting there. He goes, how in hell did you get here? I said, I flew under the radar. And I did. And I stayed with him. And I wouldn't leave his side. Every day. He'd wake up every morning and say, Jake, you're always here. I go, yeah. Where else would I be, asshole? because he was that cool. A week before he died, and he went through so much. He had so many tumors in his body, in his liver, in his kidneys, in his lungs, in his back, on his head, and his chest. They were inside and outside. They were just destroying him. And about a week or so before he died, I was sitting there. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and he goes, Jake, I'm scared. And I walked over to him. I put my head on his forehead and put it back into the pillow, and I said, do you hear mortars? He went, no. And I go, then we're not scared, motherfucker. And we laughed so loud they came and closed the door. In hospice, they leave the doors open. They had to close our door. So we were up till 6 in the morning having just an outpouring of things that made us laugh. Because after you've been mortared the way we were mortared, you can't be scared anymore. You understand? You can't. It's that terrible. And we were mortared hard, 60-round salvos. We use 8-round salvos when the Marines fire their mortars. 8 rounds hit the ground. Terrible. 64 in the air, 8 halfway down the tube. That's fire for effect. When you have 60 rounds landing, do the math. It gets real complicated. And that's what it was like out there on those fields. But we never broke. We held. Nothing they could do could stop us. That's why I say I walked among heroes. So I'm very, very fortunate. And when I sit with my men, we're going to have a reunion this summer here for a lot of. When I sit with these guys, it is a grand reunion. It is Valhalla to me. I'm talking about warriors, first-rate warriors who did it all, stood the time when lesser people would have bent to the will of 2 regiments. We were a company in the lead, 140 men against thousands. We didn't bend. That's why I tell people I walked among heroes. I had nothing to do with it. I just happened to be fortunate enough to be with them. But those guys were tough. They were harder than woodpecker lips. They went into the machine guns knowing it was just them and the guns. And they did it. The most famous picture about Vietnam on the internet, you can go anywhere and find it, is my platoon charging on May 7th into bunkers. So all of them suffer in their own little ways. But they, when we're together, we laugh through it. When we go to buddy up programs, what do we do there?
Oh, we laugh.
We laugh.
We laugh a lot.
That's what gets us through it all. Having a psychiatrist sit in the room and ask insipid questions doesn't help us. They think it does because they think they're important, but they're not. Always remember this. The person who's suffering, or the patient, is always the most important person in the room. Always. The doctors are as insignificant as flea shit. The patient is important. But they don't know that because they've got white jackets and they think they're important. But they're not. Every now and then you get a doctor who understands that and walks into the room and makes you feel like $1 million because they center their attention on you instead of the attention going on the doctor. And I have a problem with that. But that's just me. But I will tell you that PTSD is multifaceted. The best picture I ever saw of it was a picture of a guy in an armor suit. You know, the old knights of old. And when you're looking at this armored suit, there are words in different places, and there are 25 triggers around you, which will cause the other ones to all fall into place and go with you. And any one of them can be the trigger for that moment. And so when you look at that and you study that, you go, wow, I understand now. This is complicated. It isn't 1 or 2 things that do it. Here are 25 things that they absolutely know about PTSD that sets people off. And this trigger goes, this trigger. Years ago when I was a boy, they were trying to explain nuclear fusion. And so they had this picture done where they had 1,000 mouse traps with ping pong balls on them. And somebody throws a ping pong ball and it goes pop, 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 and all around the room, all the ping pong balls are bouncing all over. And that was the idea of how one molecule hits another molecule, and how we have nuclear reaction. That's pretty good. It was a good visual. You can remember it for the rest of your life. And we have the same things going with PTSD, only there's 25 of them. And when one hits, it might set this one off as well, and this one, and this one, and this one. You don't really know. And so what you have to do is step back, take a breath, and ask yourself, what's happening? What exactly is happening to me? But unfortunately, most times when it happens like a snap. I call it the lever falling. You don't see it. When the lever falls, you're screwed. You're in deep PTSD mode. You had nothing to do with it. It just happened because this one. Now, if you're aware of that, you can actually talk someone out of it. If you're talking to somebody who's having a tough time with it, they'll tell you what the hell the problem is or what set them off. But you can't lecture them.
Yeah.
You need to ask them. Embrace them. Let them know that you're listening, not yawning at them when you're talking. Did I bust you? You're gonna pay for that later. That's okay. I know you're gonna pay. You understand what I'm saying? You just have to listen.
It's funny you brought that up. So, last year I got nominated and I got a humanitarian award. And the write-up, it's crazy how they do it. The write-up was, they're small. It never tells you what actually happened. It's like getting a write-up, you know.
Exactly.
So, I went to a buddy up meeting. So one of the things I do is, you know, Gunny earlier was talking about how he had that meeting at the VA where everybody sat down and everybody just talked, and they didn't need a doctor in the room, and everybody was able to talk. So one of the things I've been doing for the past 5 years with our buddy up members is I've been doing jiu-jitsu. I've been teaching jiu-jitsu for free. I call it choke therapy. So these guys will come in. These guys come in and we sit down before we start training, and you know, usually you can look at somebody's face and say, okay, I know this guy's in distress today. He's got something going on. And what we do is we talk. You know, you never know who's going through something else and, you know, going through the same thing. And usually we talk and then we start training. And at every meeting, I always tell guys, come train. So I'm at a meeting one day and this young Marine comes in. It's his first time at our meeting. And I was telling him, hey, you know, I teach jiu-jitsu. Why don't you come by and check it out? I give him my card. And he's like, yeah, I'll check it out. So about 3 days later, I get a phone call at 12:30 at night. And sometimes I don't pick up the phone, but I don't know the number or I don't know who it is. So I pick it up. Something told me to pick the phone up. I pick up the phone and he's on the other end of the phone. He goes, hey, I didn't know anybody else to call. I had your business card from the other day from the buddy up meeting. And he goes, I'm sitting at my table. I got a bottle of Jack and I got a .45 pistol on my table. And he said, when I finish this bottle of Jack, I'm going to shoot myself. So I told him to stay on the phone with me and talk to him. I got dressed. Told him, give me your address. I drove to his house, probably about 90 miles an hour. Get there, go to his house, and sure enough, there's a bottle of Jack on the table and a Kemper 45 with the hammer cocked back, ready to go. And I sit down, I talk to him, I slide the gun off the table, and I said, listen, I'm going to sit here with you, and I'm going to finish this bottle of Jack, and in the morning, I'm going to take you to get help once we finish this bottle. And he was like, all right. And we talked until the sun came up, got him in the car, and I got him to a facility, and he got help. And now I talk to him every week, 2-3 times a week, and check in with him, and he's doing great, you know. But had I not been there to get him through that little rough patch, because sometimes people don't see, if you just hold on till the next day, there's another day. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a brighter day the next day. You just got to get past this little tough patch that you're going through. And it was a humbling experience, you know. One, that this guy, he had enough confidence, enough faith in me just to reach out to me and call me up and say, hey, I need help. And to me, that embodies what this program is about, what this Live to Tell, this Buddy Up, Live to Tell is about, is seeing when your brothers are down and your sisters are down and reaching out a hand and picking them up and making sure they're okay, that they're here to see another day and make it to another day. And it was a humbling experience, you know. And this whole conversation that we've been having, it makes me, I got a tattoo on my forearm right here that I got a few years back. I had a good buddy of mine that took his life, and I spoke to him that morning, and we, you know, just like my good friends, we always tell each other at the end of every conversation, we always say I love you, because you never know when you're going to see somebody else, you know, when it could be your time, or, you know, you just never know. And I had a conversation with him, and he, you know, it was like nothing. He was just like, you know, everything was cool. I was going to see him the following week. I'm this kid's godfather. And he was like, I love you. I was like, yeah, I love you too, man. And it was the last time I spoke to him. And every year on St. Patrick's Day and on the Marine Corps birthday, I wear a pit kilt. And it's because of my buddy Mac. So I remember the first year I wore it, people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what is this black dude doing in the fucking kilt?
Black Irish.
That's exactly what I was saying to him too. You know, but nobody understood. Nobody knew the meaning behind why I wore this kilt. So when people would ask me, like, how come you wear a kilt? And then I explained the story to them. Like, so he was half Irish and he was half Scottish. And he would wear a kilt on 2 times a year. And that was St. Patty's Day and the Marine Corps birthday. So I started doing it, and it kind of took off. Like, when people would ask me the story, they were like, shit, that's some, you know, that's some really deep shit. So next year, St. Patty's Day, I start getting all these text messages with people wearing kilts. Marine Corps birthday, I got a whole bunch of guys that show up wearing kilts. And it's all to honor my friend. I got a buddy of mine. He sent me a picture of this past Marine Corps birthday. He didn't make it to the celebration. He was in Disney, and he was wearing his kilt in Disney with his kids. You know, he was like, you know, he was, this is dramatic.
Alrighty.
You know, it's like, this is dramatic. So, you know, we have a saying in Recon. It's always beside you. You know, and
Never above you.
never below you, always beside you. And when you hear him talk about his friend Duke, that is the embodiment of always beside you. He was with him when he took his last breath. You know, he was there to hold him up. You know, to talk him through all the pain and to let him know that, you know, we stand firm on that. When we say always beside you, we truly mean it. We don't. It's not something that we just say to say. It's something that we take to heart. You know, and for you guys don't see it, but we got one of my I'm an instructor for a special operations prep program, and I got one of our kids here today, and I wanted him to come and meet Gunny and be able to take part of this podcast because he's trying to go to Recon. And one of the things we were talking about when he first got here, Gunny and I was telling him, I said, when he showed up at our program at South Florida Tactical Athletes, he wasn't able to swim. And I gave him an order. I said, hey, you know, jump in the pool. Jumps in the pool, 15 feet of water, without knowing how to swim. And I look at him at the bottom of the pool, and I turned over the other instructors, and I said, I don't think he can swim. And he starts coming up out of the water like a shark is chasing him. And then he comes up, and he's breathing heavy. I said, you can't swim, can you? He was like, no, sir. And, you know, like I told Gunny, one of the things we always say is that, you know, we can teach you how to swim, we can teach you how to shoot, but we can't teach you how to have heart. And,
That's right.
you know, this kid,
That's right.
same day, jumps off a 5-meter dive platform doing heel casting. So that says a lot about a person. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to introduce him to Gunny. I wanted him to see and to hear, you know, some of these amazing stories of the men that came before him. And, you know, I'm really big on, he'll tell you, I'm really big on them knowing their history, them knowing their creed. I drill it on into their heads every week. And if they don't know their creed and they don't know their history, what happens?
Punish.
They
Positive
drop.
reinforcement.
You know, everybody in the Marine Corps today goes, Ooga, right? Everybody. And Recon in particular. But no one knows the history of it. Back in the Second World War, when reconnaissance was first put to a test, they would come in on submarines. And the Marines, every time they would dive, the thing would go, dive, 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 ooga, ooga. And so the Marines started to copy that, go, ooga, ooga. And that's where that comes from. It comes from Recon Marines. Yeah, it's a true story. It's a little bit of something that you need to know. So when you hear somebody go, ooga, think that there's guys back in the subs in the Second World War making landings. It's, you know, it's just part of the real story. But the average person, even in Recon, doesn't know it unless somebody takes the time to tell them.
Right. You know, and one of the things we always, you know, I always tell guys to do when they meet the Gunny is to just sit down and talk to him. Just sit down. He's like a walking history, you know, book, right? You know,
It's because I'm old.
yeah, extremely old.
Thank you, buddy. Kick your ass.
But you know, these are things that, you know, the thing about this generation is everything's at their fingertips. Like I asked a kid the other day, I said, hey, what's a card catalog? He goes, I don't even know. Hold on, let me Google it. That right there in of itself.
He didn't have to go through those catalogs, did he?
No, that in and of itself answers your question. So you know, you have a generation where everything's at their fingertips. They want to know something, they just look online, they Google it, right? But what better way to learn something than to learn it from somebody that's been there and done that and seen it firsthand.
Let me explain to you how I perceive the Marine Corps. Since its inception in Philadelphia, Tun Tavern. Do you know why they called it Tun Tavern? Because they had great big casks of beer in there, and they were called Tuns. So they had 2 of them in there, and it was called Tun Tavern. And that's where the Marine Corps was formed. Now, going all the way back there, before they had Parris Island, before they had Quantico, before they had all the things that we have today, they were training to kick ass and take names. That was their pretty much what they did. And when you go all the way through our history, no matter what time you pick in the Marine Corps history, somebody trained somebody who trains somebody, you understand? And one day, in 1965, I was standing outside the company headquarters, which was India Company, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. I was fortunate to be in that company. It was the best company in the division. We had a first sergeant who had 36 years in the Marine Corps, and he was a first sergeant because he had gotten in trouble before and had to go back down. But he had been the drill instructor for the sergeant major, and he had put the colonel through OCS. So he was a squared away guy. And we all had pogie ropes. You ever see the 6th Marines or the 5th Marines? They wear what they call a pogie rope. It's a French fourragère. It was given to them at First World War from the Battle of Belleau. And so the first sergeant's standing out there, and he's got this old woolly booger. Just all look nasty looking. And I go, First Sergeant, where'd you get that old looking thing there? And he goes, from my father. And like an idiot, I went, where did he, before I even got it out of my mouth, I realized he got it at Belleau. It was the original ones. They didn't have nylon, they had wool.
Yeah.
So he's wearing a fourragère that was given to his father at the Battle of Belleau, and he's my first sergeant. His father, he had an impact on my life. I was standing there realizing that I was talking to a piece of history, real history. And then when you talk to the guys from Iwo Jima and from Guadalcanal and from Tarawa, Saipan, Tinian, you name an island, you get a guy who's there, and when they're training you, they train a different way. It's from the heart. When they speak, your ears get real big like Mr. Potato Head. You want to hear every single thing they have to say. So I was fortunate. I was trained by Second World War vets, Korean War vets. The guy that taught me about booby traps in Vietnam taught me about booby traps. And he had been at a place called the Chosin Reservoir. Ever hear of it? Korean War. Do your history. Guy named Chesty Polo was there.
What does he say?
Good night, Jesse Perler, wherever you are.
Yes, but Chesty Polar was with the 1st Marine Regiment at the Chosin Reservoir. The stories that came out of the Chosin Reservoir are absolutely off the chart. One of them is about Fox Company 27 again. Fox Company 27 held a pass so that the guys leaving there could get out. They held it for 3 days against overwhelming odds against the Chinese. 4 guys won the Medal of Honor in that company. And one of them was a private, one of them was a company commander. But if you could read the battle of Fox Company 27 in the Chosin Reservoir area, you would be blown away by the heroism, the absolute, where did they get the strength? They were freezing to death. They had no food. They had very little ammunition. They had to steal the Chinese ammunition to be able to shoot. It was just an incredible story. But they held that pass against overwhelming odds. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? It's just everybody is a piece of a history down through the times. And they're all part of who we are today. When I'm sitting in a room, I realize that I represent all of the history of the Marine Corps, all of it. When my son graduated Paris Island in 2012, it was Friday, November 9th. He graduates, the next day's Marine Corps birthday. We go from South Carolina, Paris Island, up to Charleston. My friend Ken's up there. And we're going to the Marine Corps Ball in Charleston. Part of the people there with the band and everything were the people from the Citadel. All those going Marine Corps side of the house. It was maybe, 500-600 people. There's a lot of people there. The commanding general who was there, who was the guest of honor, he was the top dog. He was standing in the passageway when I walked down the hallway in my black tuxedo with a black tuxedo shirt and a $10 Marine Corps tie I got out of the VA. And I'm walking by him, and I look, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I know you." And I go, he says, "Who were you with?" I went, 2-7. He said, "I was at 2-4. I said, "Blocking force." He was on float phase as a company commander, and his company was coming in their food line, and they needed to have a blocking force. It's called a hammer and anvil. We were the anvil, he was the hammer. They were coming off the ships. We had to go out and set up a blocking force, and I was the point. I went and did that. So we had to talk beforehand to coordinate. And he flew in from the ship. We coordinated. We took off. He went back to the ship, and then he came in with his company, made a landing. By the way, he won a Medal of Honor that day. So yeah, here he's standing there with his Medal of Honor around his neck, his 2 stars on his shoulders. He's a retired 2-star general. And he's standing in the hallway. He and I are talking, and no one will come near us. They're giving us wide berth because we're like 2 old war horses talking. And it was so great. Just the fact that we worked on an operation together made us close, like we were, the same rank. Rank didn't matter at that point. It was 2 Marines who fought in the same battle. And so my son comes in. He's the youngest guy present. And he brings the cake in. I didn't know they were doing this. Ken got him all rehearsed and everything else during the day. So they fife in the cake, and my son's the one that brings it in because he's the youngest Marine present. The oldest Marine present is a Master Sergeant, retired, who was a PFC at a place called Guadalcanal, where he won the Navy Cross as a BAR man. You don't know what a BAR is, but it's a Browning automatic rifle. Fires 2 speeds of automatic, and it's heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah, it's one of the best rifles.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can throw it off a bridge, it'll still work. You can't hurt it. But all little guys, short guys were always BAR men because they had a better chance of surviving in combat. Machine gunners and BAR men were all small, Second World War, because they had 32 seconds life in a machine gun, 64 seconds in an AR man. That was their average life expectancy. So this guy he was obviously pretty good with his gun, and he's standing there, and so they read out this really cool lieutenant who had been a sergeant. Just a really cool dude. He's like 6'1". He looks like a statue, he's reading from the scroll. And he reads about the oldest man present is Master Sergeant so-and-so, whose name I forget right now, but the guy was standing at attention like he was 20. Okay? This is a guy who fought at Guadalcanal in 1942. He's standing there as a retired Master Sergeant. And then they read out my son. And he goes, the youngest man present is, and he goes, John Hall Parsons IV, and he gives his birth date, and then he graduated high school on this date, which was that summer. And he graduated Parris Island, South Carolina, and he's holding the script, and he goes, graduated Parris Island, South Carolina. And he freezes, he doesn't say anything. And everybody in the room is listening, and he goes, yesterday. The place stood up and cheered. It was so cool. He only graduated yesterday. So he's in there having a piece of cake, because on the Marine Corps birthday, the oldest guy and the youngest guy get the cake.
Yeah.
And then everybody goes and sits down, and we get on with the night and stuff. After the dinner, the general comes down to the table. I'm sitting like this, and my son, and I see the general coming out, saying, Jake's got his back to him. And the general goes up and taps on him, and he goes, excuse me. My son jumped out of the chair like he had a spring on his butt. Sir, yesterday he was a dirt ball at Parris Island. You understand? You can never do anything right. Even after you graduate, they yell at you, they talk down to you.
Yeah.
And the next night he's sitting at a Marine Corps ball, and colonels and majors and captains and sergeant majors and master gunnery sergeants are walking up to the table and welcome him to the Marine Corps. Blew him away because he was being treated as an equal, as a Marine. Yeah, he was a private, but so what? He was a Marine, and he realized that there. And then the general wanted to talk to him, so he took him way far away on the other side of the room, and they talked. And the general said to him, you see all these fabulous Marines in here? They spent their lifetime writing the history of the Corps. Your job is to go forth and write the future of the Corps. Can you do that? You got foot, you do, yeah. So my son walked away with a coin. And on the coin, 2 stars with gold wings underneath. When you turn it over, it's got the Medal of Honor on the back. So he keeps his coin, and he goes down to School of Infantry. They're out in the field all week. They're firing up stuff. They come in and they're cleaning their rifles on these cleaning tables, and the platoon sergeant is there sitting there. And he's talking to them. He's being nice. These guys are, they're School of Infantry. It's not Parris Island anymore. So he says, hey, anybody here have any challenge coins when you're home on leave? They all started getting them, and he went, oh yeah, challenge coin. He went over to his razor kit, his shaving kit, and reached inside, and he had the thing. He holds on to it, and the guy's looking at all these challenge coins. Yeah, this is a go, this is it. And then my son puts his out. He goes, is this any good? And the guy looks up and he goes, whew, 2 stars? I think it is. And he looks on the back and he goes, you will never buy a drink anywhere. Because you won't. It's that good of a
Coin, yeah.
The general with the Medal of Honor, yeah, that's going to be hard to beat. You're going to have to get up earlier in the morning to get one. But I just thought that was interesting. But he learned at that point Why do we teach history as one of the main subjects at Parris Island? Because you need to know it to appreciate it. When you're standing tall, why are you standing tall? In the last 10 years, one of the very coolest things, actually I shouldn't say cool, I guess, the most moving thing that happened was when General Kelly was talking to a group of people in Washington, and his son had just died the week before in combat. He never mentioned him. He talked about these two corporals, corporal and lance corporal, who had just taken over a post, and they were told, don't let anybody pass. Okay? So they had both Iraqis and Marines there. So 150 men inside this compound. And they weren't on duty for more than 5 minutes when a truck came barreling around the corner and started to pick up speed going through the serpentine, those big things that they used to try to keep you from going through. And they leaned into and started to fire. Leaned into, started to fire. That's important. They weren't, hiding behind their car with their gun in their hand. Sorry about that. They leaned into it and began to shoot this truck up. When the truck got down to a certain point, the guy was dying. He hit the button and blew it up. There was thousands of pounds of explosives. They died instantly. When the general was reading the script about what had happened, he wanted to go and talk to the people who were there. And when they talked to the Iraqi police who were there, who were running away when they saw the truck coming, they couldn't believe those two guys stayed there and died keeping everybody safe. They leaned into the firing. And that's an important point. When you see my men in the pictures from Vietnam, they're leaning into the machine guns. They're not backing up. They're not scared. They're scared shitless, but they know that they have to perform and they go forward. Marines have been doing that since the day they put their uniforms on back at Tun Tavern. They have leaned into the battle. When you look at the history of the Second World War, oh my God, the amount of bravery on a daily basis shown by these guys on these island hopping campaigns, it's just off the charts. When you know about Guadalcanal, the fact that they stayed on that island for 6 months with no food, little ammo, no heavy artillery, against overwhelming odds. Had we lost Guadalcanal, we would have lost the war in the Pacific. Are you aware of that? That's a fact. Had we lost Guadalcanal, we would have lost the war in the Pacific, because if Guadalcanal fell, they would have started bombing Australia, and Australia was our only free country down there that we could work with. That's how vital it was. And when the 1st Marine Division landed there, they were light. They had 8,000 men in the division. Okay, and most of them were reservists. So it's really interesting when you start to read how these guys stood the test of time and how they never backed down and they never go. And you hear that and you're really excited about it. And then you see your own men do it and you're like, whoa, where did he come from? I don't know, but I know they do. I know when the machine guns fired, we always went to the firing. I'm just amazed at how many people don't do that today in this country. Most people don't go to the firing. They look for all sorts of reasons not to get there. But you can put out a firefight very quickly by just one aimed shot. One bullet can do it. Sometimes just firing at the son of a gun and making them put their head down stops them from what they're doing. But people aren't aware of that. They have to be trained to do that. There's so many things that we do well in the Marine Corps that no one else does as well.
That's right.
And I've trained with the Special Services. I've trained with the Rangers. I think the Rangers are one of the greatest units in the United States Army. They're just the baddest of the bad guys. They really are. And I love walking down the street with them because when they salute, you know what they say? They don't say good morning, sir, or good afternoon, sir. You know what they say? They go, Rangers lead the way, sir. It really is nice to be with them when they do that. So I've worked with Rangers. I've been to Amphibious Recon School with 2 Rangers. I've worked with all the Ranger battalions, and they've come to Camp Lejeune for their amphibious training, and I got to deal with them and work with them. And they're just some of the toughest, greatest guys in the United States Army. Army Special Forces, Green Beret, worked with them all the time, all over the world, and they're great guys. Navy SEALs, they're great guys, but they get too flamboyant. They're too up on themselves. They do a lot of dumb things, and they have to be retrained to do that. So we have a way of doing things that makes us work. And knowing the history gives you a sight of where you are and what your obligation is. To me, the most important thing I learned at Paris Island, besides how to drill and shoot a weapon right-handed, was the history of the Corps.
It's true.
It really is that important. And of course, knowing after I left that I met these guys who had all fought in so many cool places, and to listen to them talk, we're like, oh, they were pretty good at what they did, and they knew how to keep you alive. And that's really what we do. We just keep passing the word on. So you're here today so we can pass some word on when you're not yawning at me.
I saw it. I was online the other day, and I saw this conversation with this feed online, and this one guy was he was bashing a Recon Marine from Vietnam. He's a Marine guy, young kid, and you know, you have to remember when we were in the Marine Corps, there was no such thing as MARSOC. We were the only branch of service that weren't part of the SOCOM.
Yeah.
And we were the holdouts, right? Mm-hmm. So once they decided, you know what, we've been the holdout for so long, and Gunny will tell you, we used to get all the hand-me-down stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we're kind of like the redhead stepchildren. They didn't, you know, we got all the old hand-me-down gear, but you know what? Even with all the old hand-me-down gear, we made things happen, you know, and we did it well. You know, so now that these guys that are MARSOC, you know, if you look at MARSOC was stood up by Force Recon Marines, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go and you look at the ranks of the MARSOC community, they had no. Where do you pull from when you start MARSOC? Where do you pull from? You have to reach back to the guys that have been doing this for all these years to stand it up, and that's what they did. You know, so you know you look at your history, and you got to appreciate your history, right? Like, I tell SEALs all the time, my buddies that are SEALs, I clown them all the time. I say, you know, you guys could thank us because you guys came from us, from the original Raiders. The original Raiders trained up at Fort Pierce, where the Navy SEAL Museum is, and that's the whole Hell Week came from the Marine Corps. You know that good, right?
It's called RIP School, yeah.
Exactly, it's called RIP School. So
Recon Indoctrination Program.
So Hell Week came from the Marine Corps, the Raiders, the original Raiders.
Okay, you understand that this is a couple things. First of all, they had UDT in the Second World War. They stopped 500 yards inland. They didn't go past that. The UDT guys did an incredible job in the Second World War. But they were divers and explosive guys. But they didn't do patrolling. They didn't go in. They didn't do raids. They didn't do anything. So later on, the SEALs were formed to do those kinds of functions. But they didn't have anybody who were in the SEALs or the UDT who could train them to go inland and do the things they needed to do. So Force Recon Marines. They don't want to talk about that, but that's the truth. And it's just, you know, it is. It's like, who are you going to go to? Who are you going to go to? You know, it's like, who taught sniper school for years and years? The military was broken down by money. Okay, everything is about money. So for a while, the Navy had its own jump school in Lakehurst, New Jersey. They shut it down. You could only go to the Army jump school because the Army was being paid by Congress to run a jump school. Got it? Navy run the dive school. Marine Corps ran the sniper school. Did you know that? That's what we did. We were the snipers. And the Air Force ran the MP school down in Texas. Everybody had something to do, and the Office of Management and Budget made sure that each service had something. They didn't want duplication. They didn't want 3 of these schools and 4 of those. They didn't want them. So they cut them back to where everybody was accountable. And it worked. It worked pretty well anyway while I was there. But trying to get things done when you have nothing. For instance, when we had weapons in Force Recon, we had MP5s, we had MAC-10s, just a couple, and we had 10 CAR-15s we were called back then. And the only ones who got them were people who became honor grads in school. That's how you got one. You didn't just go down and draw one. You were given one from an honor grad. So the whole time you were in the unit, you carried one of these really cool weapons. The stock collapsed and it was a short barrel, and you could carry it. And much better than carrying. Let me tell you something, when you parachute out of a plane with an M60 machine gun strapped to you, you understand what uncomfortable it is. But when you're jumping out with a Car-15, it's like, no big deals. So, yeah, everybody has something to shoot for, to get. And that's what we did. We made everything a competition. Everything in Force Recon is a competition from the moment you get there. I mean, the in-dock. Did they ever tell you about the in-dock?
No.
In in-docks, when you get there, you want to volunteer for the company. It's a 6-hour in-dock. The one that I wrote 2 of them, but the one I wrote, the last one I wrote for Force Recon, and it simply began by you standing outside my office at 0700, standing at attention, facing the sun coming up on the east, and we would begin. And we would begin by me walking up to somebody and saying, spell reconnaissance. But they couldn't spell reconnaissance.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. First question, oh, you went to Gold Wings, you don't know how to spell reconnaissance. Everybody would say, recon, yeah, spell reconnaissance. And then we would say, okay, get on a pull-up bar. We're going to do a PFT. Everybody has to do a PFT. But everybody thinks that in the Marine Corps, you have to do 20 pull-ups to get 100 points. Force Recon, you got to do 30 pull-ups. Or you don't go any further. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
30 pull-ups or go. So what we used to do to make it challenging, was we'd give them a gas mask and told them to go up on a pull-up bar with a gas mask on and start doing pull-ups just to see how they would do. And of course, it's disorienting, it's very frustrating, and you can barely breathe. So it's very hard. But if a guy made 30 pull-ups with a gas mask on, he was in. He didn't even have to take the rest of the test. I just did it for fun. That's how tough these guys had to be. And then after they did the pull-ups, they had to do their sit-ups, and then they had to go on a 3-mile run. They had to do it all in 18 minutes, the run. So we didn't take less than 300s. I mean, it wasn't even negotiable. So we didn't do anything else until after they took the PFT. Now, they took the PFT in boots and utes and a t-shirt. No sneakers. Boots and utes. Can't run 3 miles in 18 minutes in boots and utes. We're not looking for you. That's how tough it was. And so many guys would come to test, and so many guys would be gone. And then after the test, they had 5 minutes to use the head, get water, have a cup of coffee, do whatever they wanted to do. And then we would put a flak jacket on, a 50-pound rucksack, and a rifle. And we would go on a 10-mile run. But it wasn't just any 10-mile run. It was a fun 10-mile run, where periodically you would stop and do 50 push-ups and 50 flutter kicks, and you would crawl underwater, so underneath the street, and you get all wet, and we'd roll you around in the sand, make a sugar cookie out of you, make sure it got some down your ass so it got all scraped up and down in your crotch. Oh yeah, we took them right, we took them here. And when they would come out of the tunnel at the other end, they think, man, it's no big deal. I'll just put my head down and go into the tunnel. When they get to the other side, there's 2 guys out in the water waiting for them. They're called dingo dogs. Their asses are down. You didn't go down there in a panic. They thought, well, they didn't even know what's happening. We're psyching them out everywhere we turn. And while they're running along, I'll just yell, incoming, and they have to hit the deck. And I'll go, I just got hit by a piece of shrapnel on the leg. Somebody has to pick me up and fire me and carry me up a hill. Deep sand. Yeah, stuff like that. And if I can get your rifle from you, you're done. We'll try to just come up to you and grab you and start pulling on the rifle. If we get the rifle, you're done. Go back. That's it. So it's a 10-mile run. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's all about psychological. It's nothing about strength. I had a guy only made 6 miles and passed out on the side of the road, and I picked him up, put him in a Jeep. He was a keeper. He ran until he passed out. But if you make the 10-mile run, when you get back, you drop your pack, you drop your rifle, you drop your flak jacket, and you get on the pull-up bar and knock out as many as you can. Then you put your gear on, and we trot over to the pool. We get to the pool, and you go off the 15-foot meter board with all your gear. You got to come to the surface, take off your pack, take off your flak jacket, put your rifle on the side, and then tread water. With your hands out of the water for a minute. Yeah. Then when you do that, you take your boots off, you put them around your neck. And you take your trousers off and make a flotation device. When you do all that, you put your shit on the side of the pool, and you're going to swim 500 meters, side stroke, breaststroke, 15 minutes, go. When you're all done that, and you're standing on the side of the pool, and you're fucking exhausted because you've been running since 7 o'clock in the morning, it's almost noon, and you're like, man, this is tough. tell them to put their gear on. Let's go see the first sergeant. They leave, they go out the door, they get in formation. There might only be 4 or 5 of them. We're going to start their jog very slowly back to see the first sergeant and get in to the company. Just as we clear this tree line, to the left is an obstacle course. Oh, I forgot, you gotta do the obstacle course twice for time. Here's the best part. Here's the best part. They take all their gear, they stack it up, and they get on the obstacle course and they run. And it takes every bit of their life's energy to get through it. Now, this is the fun part. They climb the rope at the end. That's the last thing they do. They barely get to the top. They come down, they run around, they can do it again. Now, here's the sad thing. Nobody can get up the rope the second time. Do you know why? Because it's soaking wet from where they climbed up in their wet clothes, and they can't hold on. And because people are creatures of habit, they go to the same stupid wet rope and try to climb it instead of finding a dry. Do you understand what we're doing? We want to see who's aware, who's weak and is tired and everything. Who's thinking? Who's alert? Who can think through the problem? The problem was you're on the same rope, you idiot. And so I would go over and I'd say, look, this rope's dry. You should maybe try this. And they'd run over and then they can get to the top. And then when they get done, we run them over and we get in front of the first sergeant. They stand in the hallway and they see the first sergeant. And that's why they're going to get into the RIP program if they pass the interview. And I would go in and sit with the first sergeant and say, and this guy, yes, this guy, yes, whatever. It was amazing, just amazing to see these guys come in there and stand at attention in front of the first sergeant. So tired, so weak, so shaky.
Well, he got a taste of it last Saturday. We had the Hell Day. I think I sent you some pictures of the videos, right?
Yes, you did.
So last Saturday, he got a taste of one day of what it would be like. How was that for you?
Oh, that was a great experience. I was drained. I was so drained that I already told you I was coming back from home, and I kind of fell asleep on the wheel and hit a tree. I was drained. I crashed my car.
In 1978, I went back in the Marine Corps after 9.5 years of being a civilian. I was 31 years old, and I came back in. I went to Camp Lejeune, and I volunteered for Recon. And this master sergeant came out of the back room in his skivvies, drinking a cup of coffee out of a canteen cup and having a cigarette. And he goes, "Who were you with?" And I went, 270. He goes, "I was at 24. I said, "Did you go float face?" He said, "Yes." I said, "So you landed at the Fubai?" And he goes, "I did. I was there." So we were talking, and he said, "You're a little old to go to Recon." I go, "Yeah, I want to go." So he said, "Okay." So they sent a Jeep for me with the officer of the day and a sergeant. Put me in the Jeep, took me out, Recon, to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I had slacks, loafers, and a T-shirt. That's all I had. So they had to find me a pair of running shorts or bathing suit, old green ones, and a shirt. And somebody got me some shoes. And so I went and ran the PFT. When I was done the PFT, we had to run the obstacle course twice for time. And we had to put on 50-pound packs and run 5 miles up and down the sand dunes down to a certain point. And then when you get to the top of the last big dune, you look out over the ocean, and there's this little tiny orange dot out there a mile out. It's a buoy. You got to swim around the buoy and come back. And then when you've done that, you have to run back to the battalion 5 more miles. That was my induct. That's how it was written. And I was a weak swimmer. I was weak. And I was with a guy named John Story. John Story was WSSI, which was Water Safety Survival Instructor. And he stayed with me through the whole swim. So the whole time I'm swimming, which, by the way, it seemed to take for days for me to do it. You can only do side stroke and breaststroke. You can't swim. You're just doing this. And I get out there to the buoy. I'm like, God, I can't believe we made this. And then I look back, you can't see the beach because you're out so far. The beach is down off the curve. You can only see the top of the hills. You can't see the beach. You can't see the Jeep on the beach. It's so bad. So we started back, and the whole time back, the guys who were in the safety boat, they had an aluminum safety boat with a little engine on the back. They kept bumping into me, kept pushing me under the water to get, "Come on, old man. Come on, old man. You know you want to go back, and we have coffee and donuts in the thrift shop. Come on, old man. Come on, you're going to." And he just kept saying to me, "Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them." I go, "It's hard not to. They hit me in the head with this damn boat." But I was the old man. I was 31. To them, I was really old. I mean, these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. I'm 31. I'm like, "What are you doing here?" So I get to the beach, and I come to the surf, and I'm like, "God, I made it to the beach." Now I had a problem. I was so weak, I couldn't stand up. I couldn't get out of the surf. So two guys picked me up under the arms, and I tried moving my legs, and they had to literally carry me across the beach to the road so I could turn and run. And all I remember on the run was seeing my feet come out from under me. I couldn't lift my head up, I was too tired. I just looked at my feet until somebody told me to stop running. That's how I did it. And I got back, and I'm standing there in the hallway, and I'm like, wobbling. I am beat. And this guy comes by me. He's dressed like me. He's got a green T-shirt on. He's got green twin trunks and a pair of running shoes. And he goes, "You the retread?" And I go, "The fuck is a retread?" And he goes, "You were out and came back in." I go, "Yeah, that was me." He goes, "Were you in Vietnam?" I go, "Of course I was in Vietnam. Everybody was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam." And he's like, "Who were you with?" I said, "Golf 27. And he went, "Are you on Allen, bro?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Jake." I was the battalion point. And he went, "Jake," because he was in Fox Company, 1,500 meters behind us. And so I went into his office and sat down. He was the commanding officer. We spent an hour and a half in there shooting shit. But I would have never known, And then I came out, and when he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Jack." And he said, "I'm John." And he shook my hand. I went in his office. The sergeant major was standing there watching that. He waited in the hallway the whole time we talked to him. And I came out, and he was yelling in my ear and spitting on my face. And he goes, "Get in my office now." And I went in, and I stood in front of his desk, and he goes, "So, Jack, how's John?" Sergeant Major, I've been up for 2 days. I just finished the induct. I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. He goes, "All right, you're a Lance Corporal right now." I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Do you know how to be a Lance Corporal?" "Oh, yes, sir. I got a lot of time being a Lance Corporal." "Oh, good, Lance Corporal." He goes, "Good. Then your name is Lance Corporal Parsons, not Jack." And I go, I hear you, sir, Major. It will never happen again." He reached his hand across the desk, and he goes, "Welcome home, Marine. Let's go get you some uniforms." And he brought a Jeep out and took me main side and get my initial issue of clothing. And he turned out to be one hell of a good sergeant major. And I can tell you that the next morning, I could not get out of bed. They had to pull me up off my bunk. My hands were so sore, my arms were so sore, they had to open up I couldn't use my combination lock. They had to open up for me to get in my wall lock to get stuff out. Yes, it was that bad. So I know that indocs can hurt, especially when you're 31. You remember that the whole rest of your life. Oh man, they laughed at me in the morning. I couldn't even get out of bed, dude. Jeez. It was the best thing I ever did. I'm so glad I went to Recon. It was the right China. And I learned so much, and I met so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guys who were just hardcore all the way. I mean, they just hoorah'd themselves into the corner. They wouldn't bend no matter what. And I was very fortunate.
Then you have some questions for Gunny?
Oh, yes. Gunny, so you mentioned that you were not a good swimmer. I lack swimming ability, but I still try. But I have a couple questions about, like, how do you keep your calm in, like, water confidence drills? Like, sometimes when I'm deep down in the water, I panic a little bit and my heart rate spikes up.
Everybody does. That's what you need to understand. There's nobody who doesn't feel that.
Okay.
It's like when you're jumping, when you're parachuting, everybody's like, "You're not scared, you're lying, son." You look at their faces, they're like, yeah. But really they're going, and when you're underwater, it's very easy to panic. Let's face it, it's weird. We're not supposed to be underwater that long. But one of the things that I had to train myself, and I got guys who were really good at it to train me and work with me. And I would spend all my evenings in the pool doing different things, learning how to stay down and tie knots, learning how to do crossovers, learning how to do things that were foreign to me. And I became very good at becoming relaxed, because if you take a deep breath and you hold it, even right now, when you do that, the moment you start to build up CO2 in your lungs, you want to breathe. Your body's screaming to breathe. Well, if you don't breathe off a little, it stays screaming. So you just go like this.
It's just like, all right.
You're off-gassing the CO2 out of your body, and you can stay down longer. It's literally the trick to be relaxed, is get rid of the CO2, which is building up in your lungs. It's telling you want to breathe. It's screaming, breathe, breathe, breathe. So let it go out. And once this is important, you ever notice the way lungs are built? They're a little long. Down here in the points, okay? If you took right now all your breath out, as hard as you can, you still have enough air in your lungs to live for a minute underwater. with everything out.
Seriously?
Yes. So if you know that, that's the residual down there. If you know that, when you're totally out of air, your mind should say, I still got a minute.
Alright.
That's how you get over the fears and over the jitters. You can breathe everything out, still got a minute. What are you going to do with that minute? Use your head, think clearly, or panic and shit your pants. Your choice. That's what your options are. And that's how you get to build up residuals and how you get to learn how to do it better and better by constantly doing it. Look, if you want to get to 100 push-ups, you got to do push-ups to get to 100 push-ups. You want to do 50 pull-ups, you got to do pull-ups till you get to 50 pull-ups. You want to hold your breath, you have to train your body to hold your breath and to off-gas the negative shit and stay calm. It isn't done overnight. It's a process. But if you desire to do it, you will get it done. It's that simple. He can't do it for you. I can't do it for you. Your brother can't do it for you. Only you can do it. I have a son who's 44. And when he was a boy of 12, he used to come down in the pool with me. And we would go down the ladder and hold on to the deep end and stay down there. Just look at each other. He wouldn't quit. He wouldn't go up till I went up. And he was 12. He learned to hold his breath really long and really hard, and we would sit in the bottom of the pool and stare at each other and laugh. And he became a tremendous swimmer, but he also, to this day, he can hold his breath for 2 minutes. He's 44 years old.
My 9-year-old. My 9-year-old.
Yeah.
On Memorial Day weekend, my 9-year-old bobbed. He was like, Dad, I'm going to bob. I'm going to do 100 bobs. Did 100 bobs. 8 feet of water. He's this big.
Yeah.
So when guys are in the pool and they're like, you guys are like, Instructor Kini, I can't do this. Can't do this. Listen, if a 9-year-old could do it, he's been doing this since he was 7 years old.
Yeah.
So if a 7-year-old could do it, then you can do it.
It's that important to understand it's about your brain.
Right.
All fear is brain. Your body's telling you, oh, but your brain is either in control of your fear or it isn't. When it's so bad that you can't think clearly, there's so much going on, it takes your brain to focus on what you need to do in combat when it's really bad. And I mean, there's machine guns coming from every direction and mortars are falling and rockets going by. You don't sit there and think about your own ass. You look around to see who you can help. One of the things we learned in Recon is you have a buddy program. When you're a diver, you go to school, you learn the buddy program. You never leave more than an arm's distance from your partner. Your swim buddy, you don't do it. And by doing that, you take care of them. When we were in the water, and they have what they call harassment, pre-harassment and harassment.
You know about that.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's worse on pre-harassment than harassment. But they put you in a situation where you and your partner are being ripped, torn, thrown around. Your tanks are gone. Your skivvies are gone. Your mask. You haven't seen a mask since you entered the water. And your job is to maintain. And the only way to do it is stop worrying about your own tired ass. You look out for your partner. You make sure his air is on. He's got his regulator first. He's looking for yours. When you do that, it's easier to maintain worrying about somebody else than yourself. It really is. And so that was really critical when I went to dive school. If you could take care of your partner and you only looked out for your partner, you're never worried about you, you'll be fine. Yeah, you might be needing air, but you're still going to live, especially if you've got all your air out of you. You know you're good for another minute.
Yeah.
And that's important. That psychological edge of knowing. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
If you know that I don't have any air in here, but I'm good for a minute, I can just sit here and goof off for 30 seconds. You understand? That's the trick. Yeah, will your body be wanting air? Sure it will. Will it die if you don't get it? Not right away. You'll pass out in a minute, by the way. Then you'll drown. But you'll be unconscious. You won't know it. Yeah.
See the wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did his first 25 meter the other day. And it was a big step for you, right?
Yeah, big accomplishment.
Good.
Yeah.
It's about steps, man.
I told myself I'm gonna do it today. I even told Instructor Kini, can I show you that I'm able to do the 25? I was doing it earlier before training started. It was like I was training with one of my friends, and I did it. I thought it wasn't the whole 25 because he was on the shorter end. So when I told myself I want to do it, I want to show my instructors. So when I did it, finally did it, I was so excited, man. So excited. It was a great feeling because when I got up, instructor told me to swim back, and I heard my teammates cheering me on. It gave me so much motivation.
Yeah.
It was a powerful moment.
It is.
Yeah.
Every step. Listen, every time you're going for something, whether it's a black belt in karate, you start with a white belt. You know, you got to begin somewhere, and then you go to the different colored belts, and then you go through the different stages. But you just don't walk out there and get a black belt, not unless your name is Bruce Lee, but you know what I'm saying. So every single thing we do, it's about setting the bar a little higher. Go for it. You think about sports. There's never somebody not trying to get the next world record in the mile, the half mile, the 100-yard, the long jump, the high jump. It doesn't matter what. Somebody's always going for the record. Why? Because it's there. And if you set your goals, even if they're short-term goals to get you there, when you get there, you got there. But nobody else did it for you. You do it. I don't care what it is. If you're doing it, it's worthy. You understand? It's worthy. And that's what you do. You enjoy every single success. Enjoy it. You earned it. That's why it feels so good, because you earned it.
Yeah.
Nobody gave it to you. But, you know, and
Think about how far you've come since in the 2 months you've been here, right? So you went from swimming halfway across the pool
And then almost drowning.
and then drowning halfway in the middle of the pool after you swam halfway across the pool. You went from that, right, to having lifeguards come off the space you get in the pool, stand on the side of the pool ready to jump in to save you, to now swimming back and forth without having to worry about anybody jumping to save you.
Instructor Kenny, remember the one time I swam halfway, and then I think it was the kickboard.
It was. You almost drowned my friend.
I almost drowned his friend. I was panicking because I wasn't moving. I was kicking my legs, but I wasn't going forward. I was like, why am I not going forward? So I was like, oh man, I couldn't do this. I just let go of the kickboard and then I thought he was gonna try to help me, but he just pushed me off.
So you gotta swim. If you could swim, you could swim back.
I swam.
in Paris Island in 1965, they were doing something called drown proofing. If you did this, you would be able to stay in the water for days without drowning. And it was really interesting. The problem was they were trying to do too many people in the deep end of the pool, and it was a clusterfuck. And so people are swimming on top of each other. You've got your boots around your neck, you got a rifle around your neck, and you're swimming in uniform, in utilities. And you're swimming in circles, and you've got to swim for an hour doing the drown proofing. And so what you do is you go out of the water, you take a breath, you put your head in, you swim a stroke, and you wait until you stop forward movement. Well, that sounds good on paper, and it does work. I'm drown proofed. I teach it. I believe in it. Both on your back or on your front, you can do it either way. But at Paris Island, everybody was swimming on top of each other. So I went under, and I tried to come up, and another guy put me under. And when I was coming up again, somebody else's foot kicked me in the head and put me down. And I'm down under the water, and I'm in a panic. I'm drowning, and I know it. And all of a sudden, somebody pulls me off the bottom, takes me out of the pool, and sets me on the side. It's one of the drill instructor lifeguards. So when I get done coughing and gagging and everything else, he goes, go ahead, go back in the water. And I said, no. And he goes, what did you say? I said, no. And he said, I'm telling you, Bobby, get back in that water. And I stood up, took my rifle off my shoulder, went to port arms, went into the corner and said, I said, fucking no. I'm not going in the water. How's that? Not unless you clear some of these fucking idiots out of here. And so my drill instructors came over and go, Parsons, get in the fucking water. And I'm standing there at port arms, ready to brace their fucking head. And I went, no. I'm not getting back in the fucking water. It's a madhouse. They didn't know what to do. So finally, the regimental commander came in, full-bird colonel. He walked up to me and he says, do you know who I am? I said, I would assume you're a regimental commander, sir. And he says, what is your problem? And I said, I almost drowned. They had to pull me off the bottom of the pool because it's a clusterfuck in there. People are swimming on top of each other. It's a madhouse. I don't want to be one of them that drown. And he goes, would you be willing to get back in the water if there was nobody in it? I said, sure, sir, no problem at all. I'm not afraid of the water. I'm afraid of being drowned by people who don't give a fuck about you while you're in there, and they think it's funny for you to go down there and gag and drag. And so he said, okay. He got everybody out of the pool. put my rifle on my shoulder, jumped in the water and started doing it. Then they let me continue to swim around there and do my life, drown proofing, and I got back to the barracks, and I wasn't happy. They put me in the drill instructor's hut, and the 4 of them beat the shit out of me for taking the rifle to them. They beat me unmercifully. They beat me to the ground. How dare you fucking hold a rifle against me? I said, sir, you taught me. He said, yeah, and they didn't teach you to do it to me. And I mean, they were pissed. They hated me for that because I would not bend. They thought they would just come in there and take that rifle from me. They knew better. They knew I would just fucking beat them to death with it. I didn't have to have a bayonet on it, but I knew how to fucking use a fucking M1 rifle at that time, an M14. And they were not happy, so they beat me profusely for it. But I never got back in the water with all those people. It's just, you have to look out for yourself sometimes. You really do. I wasn't scared of swimming. I wasn't scared of anything. I was scared of drowning because there was 200 guys in a fucking pool in the deep end, all trying to do the same thing. It was a madhouse. And by the way, while we were at Paris Island, they had guys drown and die, drown-proofing. So it wasn't just me. I wasn't crazy.
Was it 3rd Battalion, right? The rifle range, was that the one, the rifle range? Remember the white barracks up at Paris Island?
No, they didn't have it then. They only had one pool back then.
No, this is the guys they marched in. No, those are the guys they marched into the
Swamp.
Into the swamp.
56, that was 1956.
That's 56.
In fact, Chesty Polar came to the court and was a witness and talked on behalf of the drill instructor. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes. He put on his uniform and went in there as a 3-star general and talked about it.
Wow.
But yeah, those were tough days after that, you know.
What you got?
Oh, so back to that about being scared of the water. Like, I don't know if I consider myself being scared of the water. I just feel like I'm not so good at being in the water. Like, I'm not afraid of the water. It's just like I'm not proficient in it.
That's because you're not trying. What you need to do is go to a pool, go to the deep end, hang on the wall, put your head under the water, just drop down where your fingertips are holding you up, and just stay under the water. Just stay under the water, just relax. Come up, take a breath, go do it again. Just do it. Do you become one with the water? You must understand, this is important. You cannot beat the water. You will either one or you die. You can't beat it. We used to take the guys with the big muscles, they would get into the pool, they would try, funny thing, the boom, scoop rocks. They would always go down because they're getting so tight, they're trying to beat the water. You don't do that. You need to become one with the water.
Always tells me, you fight in the water, it's going to be harder. You're going to, you want to fight the water?
You cannot fight the water.
You lose every time.
You're going to lose every time. You're going to breathe hard every time.
All the drown proofing was being relaxed and taking a stroke. Coming out of the water, taking a breath, go in, lay there, move forward, blow your water out as you're under the water. Bring your arm, it was just, and you could stay there. And I would teach it on my back. I would teach people how to do it on their back if they had a problem with their face being in the water. But you can swim for days drown proofing. Days. You can be over the horizon, you can make it short. It's really that important. Yeah. And you need to understand, this is also important. There was a time in Camp Lejeune when the general, he had a concern because there was these guys who couldn't swim. And no matter what they did, nobody learned to swim. And I said to the general, that's because you're doing it all wrong, sir. And he says, what am I doing wrong? And I said, you have swim call Wednesday afternoon. He said, when should I have it? And I go, Saturday morning, 0700. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, you get a pool. I'll use Camp Johnson, for instance. You get every unit in the 2nd Marine Division. You make sure that they're Sergeant of the Guard and Officer of the Day know who hasn't swum, who's in quality, and get them to get on a truck that you guys get out of your motor pool and bring them to the pool at 7 o'clock in the morning. He says, why will that work? And I go, well, first of all, they won't get their weekend off. They can't swoop home. Secondly, it's on their time, not on your time. So at 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, instead of them sitting in the barracks watching cartoons and getting chow, they're going to the pool. They won't like it. But I don't give a big rat's ass. They want to learn to swim. We need them to swim. We need to save their lives. And so they came there. And there was 89 the first day. Everyone was black.
Wow.
Because they were told they couldn't swim. They're told this by their peers, their family. You know, they live in the city. Man, you can't swim. We don't. Bullshit. That's bullshit. Who taught you that? Well, it's conditioned. So I get there and I start to teach them. You got to do this. And they would get up on that platform to jump in, and they would be scared to death. They would hold their dicks in their hands, and they go, man, that water be deep, and that water be cold. I go, get the fuck out of here. I said, my son is now 44, was 3 years old, and he used to run and jump off the 15-foot platform into the water. I go, yahoo! And he'd do a cannonball, and I go, you gonna tell me that little kid can do that, and you can't do it? The fuck? No wonder you're holding your dick. You lost your balls. Come on, get in the water. And so they would, but they would struggle. But before I would let them go off the 15-foot platform, I'd have them all go to the shallow end of the pool. And we would work on just getting comfortable. And then finding out who wanted to try to swim. And who would just... And there was a guy named Love. I'll never forget him, Corporal Love. He was from Recon. He fucking hated me. He hated me. He said to me many times, you're just a fucking racist, Parsons. You just like doing this to all the black guys. I go, I didn't put their fucking names on the list. I said I'd help anybody who needed to swim. How the fuck would I know this would happen? It's like, why do you care? And I go, why do I care? Why don't you care? One day you're going to be standing on a beach and a child, might be your own, might be your niece, might be the guy next to you, and they're drowning in the water and you're standing like a pussy and can't go help them. Or they're in a fucking river or a pool and you're going to stand there holding your dick while somebody else saves your kids. You better grow the fuck up and get a pair. Learn to swim so you can save your children's lives and your own. He became a certified first-class swimmer, as did most of them, over a period of time. Some got it faster, some got it slower. But we got everyone in the division certified that they could swim so that they won't be a risk to themselves and others making landings, helicopters going down, Amtrak's going down. It's important. Yeah. And so one day, Love re-enlisted, made sergeant, and he was leaving, and he was going off to his new assignment. And he walked in my office, and he stood in front of my desk, and I go, what's up, Sergeant? Because he just made sergeant. And he said, I came to apologize. I said, why? He goes, I hated your guts. Every fucking Saturday morning, I hated your guts. But I can swim now. And I want to tell you, that took a lot to put up with my shit and still teach me to swim because you care. And we shook hands, and I made a friend. And I made a friend simply because I taught him that his real responsibility wasn't just to himself, but to his family, his friends, his children, his uncles. And it makes no difference who. Isn't it better to be able to save a life than stand around and wish you could? That's all I was doing. And I did it for 22 weeks. It's every Saturday for 22 weeks, but we got every one of them qualified. And over a period of time, I made some friends. There was a couple of guys that hated me and never would stop, but that's on them, it's not on me. But we trained everybody who was unk in the 2nd Marine Division how to be safety qualified. S1 swimmers across the board. You can't ask for more than that. I couldn't make a WSSI, which is a whole different program for Red Cross, but a first-class swimmer is a first-class swimmer. It's in the record book. And by the way, it helps towards promotion.
I have another question, Gunny.
Sure.
So, you mentioned that they write for NDOC, BRC. You didn't mention BRC, but NDOC and BRC. They rather look for people who are more of a team player than like a stud, like a show off. Like you understand what I'm saying? Like
one of the things
care about more about the team.
One of the things you need to understand is this: every one of us is a strong suit and a weak suit. Every one of us. It makes no difference who you are. If you have a strong suit in something, don't hold it to yourself. Share it with those. Get somebody who's weak in something to do good at something. It won't go unnoticed, even if it's just for them and you. If you take care of others around you, you don't have to worry about your own tired ass. You understand what I mean? Yeah. And it's the little things that count. The little things. I had a guy named Rager, and he came from Alabama. He's a good old boy from Alabama. And I went and I tested him at Camp Geiger and tested him for recon, and he passed. So I took him out there and I put him through grip school. And he was tough. He was just a tough son of a bitch. And every day, everybody got to run with 50-pound rucks. But because I wore a 65-pound ruck, he made his 65 pounds. He was tough. And he never said much, but he was tough. He was all heart. And he just never wouldn't be in the front leading with a 65-pound pack. And whenever possible, he would carry the machine gun. He'd come take it from me. I can get that. And he'd carry the machine gun. And not anybody wanted that machine gun. Just Rager. But he was tough. And he smoked Rip School. He smoked Amphib Recon School up in Little Creek. And one day, he came to work for me in the 3 shop. He was a lance corporal. He was pretty sharp, smart guy. But he would every day at lunchtime go out and get his 65-pound ruck and go run down the road with his ruck on. He just was tough. So he made corporal meritoriously. I put him up for it, and he did good. So in came a ranger quote. You got to be a corporal above to go to ranger school. And I said to the colonel, I want Rager to go to ranger school. And he goes, you think he'll do well? I said, I think he'll kick its ass. He said, okay. So we sent him to ranger school. Now there are 3 phases to ranger school. There's an honor grad for each phase. No one in the history but one man has ever won all 3 phases, just so you know, and never an enlisted man. And so he goes to ranger school, and I said to him, listen, I'm going to tell you something I want you to do. It's going to kick your ass. But they'll remember you forever. He said, what's that? I goes, never give up the machine gun. Carry it through all 3 phases. Never bitch and never give it up. And he did. And he was the first man to win all 3 awards. Okay? And he came back and he was walking down the road and I was watching. And I went in and I said, Sergeant Major, we need to get this man promoted to sergeant today. And he goes, no fucking way. And I went, oh, way. I went out and I got a Jeep. I took him, put him in a Jeep, took him over to division, went into the division sergeant major, said, Sergeant Major, this man just won all 3 first place awards in Ranger School. Never been done before. Never by an enlisted man and never by a Marine. He needs to be a meritorious sergeant because of it. He goes, you goddamn right he does. He went into the general's office and the general was there and he said, man, and Corporal, get in here. I'm so proud of what you did. They promoted him to sergeant on the fucking spot. Went back to fucking dying. There was the sergeant major standing in the hallway with his thumb up his ass playing Switch. And Rager came walking down, the sergeant. He goes, where the fuck, how did you do that? He said, the division commander promoted me. He can do that. And Sergeant Major didn't understand what had just happened. He had not taken care of one of his men. Do you understand me? He had a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that man was a sergeant. And he turned his back on him. He had no time for that sergeant major after that. He was an ass. But the sergeant major of division and the division commander understood what he had just accomplished. Against all odds, he carried that machine gun through all 3 sections of Ranger School. Toughest school in the Army's Ranger School. He carried a machine gun, and he won all the awards. We're still friends to this day. Okay? That's when you know you got the right guy in the right job.
So would that be considered like a little thing, like doing little things that other people won't do?
No,
that's
a big thing.
Yeah,
Carrying a machine gun's a big thing.
yeah, like.
But when somebody needs help them.
Yeah.
Don't just sit around thinking about yourself. Look around, see who's struggling. Talk to them. Just be a friend to them. Help them out. Minimize their pain and frustration. When you do that, they're aware of who you are. And other people are noticing it too. A good instructor will pick that up. You don't want to be so arrogant that you think it's about you. It's never about you. It's about your men. It's about the people around you. If you take care of them, the situation will take care of you. You know, it's just the way it is.
Sure.
I mean, I had a colonel in Vietnam one day. He was yelling at me because after an operation on Operation Worth up in the mountains, I had used many planes to drop bombs to take a hill. And he said, I cannot believe you used so much ordnance to take that hill. And I go, why? I didn't have any men get hurt or wounded. And he goes, Corporal, your men are only worth $10,000 to the taxpayers back home, because that was our life insurance, $10,000 life insurance, that's all we got. Your people are only worth $10,000. You blew $500,000 worth of ordnance on the top of that mountain. You're not thinking like a leader. And I said, wow. I said, here's the thing, Colonel. You're not thinking like a leader. See, those are my men. My men are worth millions of dollars to me. You ain't worth a fucking dime. I cannot believe you just said that to me. And if you don't like me talking to you this way, I suggest we go see the commanding general of the fucking 1st Marine Division, and you tell him what you just said to me. I'm sure that'll look good on your record when you want to make full-bird colonel. Don't ever talk to me again, motherfucker, I'll kill you. And I walked away. And I meant that. Because he didn't know my men, didn't want to know my men. He was worried about the cost of the bombs we dropped, taking a hill, which had to be taken. And I wanted to do it without my men. And the guy who was talking to me in the air was a full-bird colonel. He was in charge of 16 planes, Phantoms. He said, what do you want? And I go, right in front of me. Walk it up the hill. He goes, you got it. And they just came in one after the other, walked right up the hill. We got up there, and there was all sorts of smolder and shit and fucking feet laying around and shit like that, but there was nobody up there with us, and we took over the hill. It was 423, I can tell you that to this day, 423 meters up. And if we didn't take that hill, the 2 battalions didn't get to come in and make the landing on Operation Worth. Why was I going up there? Why was my squad the first ones to pick up there? Because we were at fucking point for the battalion and the regiment. And we went to take the hill. So I had an opportunity to blow it up fucking with air power. Why send my men in to get hurt?
Yeah.
But he didn't see that, don't you understand? He didn't know my men. He doesn't care about my men. He's a colonel in the United States Marine Corps. But he didn't know the name of one person in my squad. Didn't ever try to find out who they were. Never wanted to talk to them about a great job they did walking point. Didn't think like that. Was more worried about the amount of money we spent dropping bombs on a hill. Boo-hoo. And that is the difference between a leader and a bullshit artist, a phony. Getting his ticket punched. Going to be in country 120 days, take his punch, go back, try to make full-bird colonel, go to schools, get on with your career, taking care of your ass.
Yeah.
Your men, insignificant. Insignificant. Don't even want to know who they are. That's not what leadership is about. Leadership is leading your men from the front, not from talking to them on the goddamn radio. Get out in front and lead them. If you can't go lead them, go pack your shit and go back to school somewhere. But stay out of the way of the men. The men are out there doing it. That's tragic, but that's the way it is. Yeah, I never liked that colonel. Of course, I never made sergeant either. Never got a medal either, but that's okay. My men were taken care of, and I didn't lose men to him. So, pound sand, buddy. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Absolutely.
You got to take care of your men. You got it. It's your job. It's your fiduciary responsibility. I used to tell people this. If you ever get in a helicopter, you'll see there's 2 pedals. There's a stick in the middle and a collective, and the pedals determine the tail end of the boat, the helicopter, where it goes. So if you push one, it goes one way. You push another, it goes another way. Well, if you just push one pedal, you'll go in a circle. If you push the pedal the other, it'll go to the other circle. So when you're flying a helicopter, you're constantly pedaling back and forth, keeping it going where you want it to go. A little bit more left, a little bit more right, but you're constantly doing it. It never stops. You don't just push both pedals and hope you're going to get somewhere. It's a constant. In leadership, it's exactly like that. Leadership is the mission and the men. There are people who only think about the mission and don't even want to know about the men. And they'll do whatever it takes to accomplish the mission at the cost of many, many men's lives. A good leader knows how to take care of their men just as importantly as taking care of the mission. And what he has to do to get the mission done and save his men at the same time. It takes thought, it takes caring, but it can be done. It can be done by a good planner, it can be done by a good leader. But when you meet somebody who just goes, get the mission done, and don't even know the name of the men who are doing it, you don't have a leader. That's not a leader, I'm sorry. And I know this because the people who trained me were good leaders. They fought in the Second World War. They knew what their responsibilities were. And they knew how to take care of their men. I remember my first gunnery sergeant. His name was Scroggins. Tough mother humper. Meanest gunnery sergeant on the planet. Fear of God. God put the fear of God in you. We're out in the field. It's 1965. We're training. We're getting ready to train to go to a certain point of training to where you can pull operations and then go on a float phase and go down to the Caribbean and spend 6 months down there training and saving lives, doing whatever we needed to do. And the first morning we're eating hot chow. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. We're supposed to have chow. We got up at 4:15 and we walked 2.5, 3 miles to sit there waiting for them to open up the chow hall, which was a tent. It's a field place. So we're sitting there and I'm bitching. What the fuck did we have to get up this early for if they're not ready for us? And standing in the tree that I was leaning up against was Gunnery Sergeant Scroggins. He said, Parsons, shut the fuck up. I said, oh, Gunny, I'm serious. Why didn't you get up so early? He goes, we wanted to be first. First people here get the best chow. Did you know that? And I go, no, I've never had field chow before. And he goes, well, you'll see what I mean. Everything will be fresh when we get there, and we can get the best food. So I wanted to eat first, so I brought us down there first. And I'm, okay. So then we're getting ready to leave. You go walk into line to go get food. We had our mess kits and our canteen cup. And he said, all right, line up. Privates first, PFCs, lance corporals, sergeants, and so forth. And so we start to take off, and I'm just a PFC, and I turn around and I go, when do you eat, Gunny? And he taught me something at that moment. He goes, the Gunny always eats last. And he said that in such a way that for the rest of my life, until today, wherever I am, when there's food, I eat last.
It's true. It's true.
I don't eat until everybody eats. That Gunny taught me that in 1965, and it's still. My last wife used to get pissed off. I would serve dinner. I'd have people over for dinner, and I'd serve all the dinner, and everybody would be eating, and I'd just be in the kitchen still doing stuff. And she'd go, sit down and eat. And I go, I'll eat last, don't worry. And she hated that. But the boys all know. What are you saying? The Gunny's going to eat last. No matter what you say, he's going to eat last. And there's a great feeling to that.
Yeah.
To know that that man stood there in that field in 1965 and taught me the responsibility of a gunnery sergeant. Got it? The Gunny eats last. When I was on recruiting duty, I had a great major, Major John Himes, one of the greatest officers I ever served with. And he was in charge of RS Philadelphia, Recruiting Station Philadelphia. And there's 150 people there and all the offices around the Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware area. And we're having a dinner. And I'm standing there at the door. And everybody's eating. The master gunnery sergeants are slopping the hogs, and the master sergeants are jumping to the front of the line, and everybody's just, it's a clusterfuck. Everybody grabbing their chow and sitting down and laughing and talking. And I'm just standing there. And the major looks over at me and I go like that. And I was telling him that everybody's got chow now. So he walks over and he's standing there and he goes, go ahead, Gunny, I eat last. And I go, no, you don't understand. You don't get to eat last. And he goes, I'm the commanding officer. And I go, yeah, and I'm the Gunny. This Gunny eats last. Grab your chow, sir. And we argued all the way down the chow line. He was that great of a guy because he was the leader. He was eating last. Do you understand? He knew that. You don't find majors that know that shit. They just don't. They're just too busy with their little scrambled eggs on their hat. They're so worried about their future. They don't remember that their job, their fiduciary responsibility is to their men and the welfare of them. Big. It's big with me. So I still keep up with my men because they're important to me. Yeah. They don't call me Gunny, they call me Jake. I was Jake to them. And I was Jake in Vietnam. When I email them, I have to remember to sign Jake, not Jack, because they don't know Jack. They don't know me anything else. And I only know them by their nicknames. One of them is Nip, and the other one is Tommy Carr, and the other one is Willie, and the other one was Duke, who's dead now, and Frank, and George, and Barney. And it's interesting. We don't go by our names. We go by how we talk to each other. All these years later, it doesn't matter. That's who we are to each other. It's been 51 years now. It's a long time. But we're still tight. I'm still proud of having served with all of them. We got a little off the subject, didn't we? I do that. It's not PTSD. You have to forgive me. I closed out with PTSD though, didn't I?
You did. Boy. So we're going to get ready to wrap this up. We've been at it for about 2 hours now, huh?
I guess, I don't know.
I know, we always lose track when we do this.
Yeah, it's good.
We want to invite you to break bread with us at the next Lance Corporal Lance Corporal Lutz, buddy up.
Broward.
Broward, actually, because we got so many chapters now.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Yeah.
So the Broward chapters happened at a buddy up meeting on June 27th at 1900. If you want to attend one of the meetings, or you're interested in attending, just text 313131 and get a text, and it'll give you a reminder to let you know.
Let me interject here. It's really important to understand this. You don't have to have any idea about what we do or how we do it when you get there. But the moment you get there, all apprehension goes out the door. You realize that you are among fellow warriors.
It really does.
And police and firemen. It's just men and women in that room are all cool. When they talk, it's about from the heart. I've never met anybody in there talking anything other than from the heart. And it's like that night we gave that paddle out. That was the most amazing feeling.
That was the best. For me, that was one of the only one that came close to that was your night when you called me a commie. But
I call you a communist motherfucker.
Exactly, we called you a communist motherfucker.
This is important. This is what happened. We're there. It's October. It's 2016, I think.
Yeah.
And we have 3 or 4 girls from Miami there. They're cheerleaders from the Miami Dolphins, and they're in there and they're giving away free tickets to the following Sunday's game, because we do this on Thursday nights. And so they're in there, and he's in the kitchen, and he says to me, "Did you get your tickets to the game?" And I went, "Did you take them?" And he goes, "Yeah." I went, "You communist motherfucker!
That's exactly
What would you do that for? This is the NFL. They're the enemies of America. You shitting me? They're communist bastards, and you're going to support them." He said, "Well, I said, Dad, stop." So we go out, and I'm really pissed. And so he calls me to the front of the room. I have no fucking idea what he wants, but he's got this paddle that he made for me, which is now, looking back on it, is pretty embarrassing. He makes me this paddle, and he's holding it behind him and wrapped up, and I come up to the front of the room, and I went off, and this woman is filming me from the side. They call it a rant. I went off about the NFL and the motherfuckers and the guy who runs the NFL. If he was in the room right now, I'd break his fucking jaw, with punk motherfuckers, and he's going, "Here, I wanted to give you this paddle."
And he goes, "As a Recon Marine, you should be fucking embarrassed with yourself that you're gonna go to this fucking game."
Yeah. And then he hands me a paddle, and I'm like, "Fuck you." It was great. It was beautiful.
How was your face? How was your facial expression?
It's right on my
I was
desk.
just laughing. I thought it was funny.
And it's right on my desk, right? And yeah, that's because we're friends. We can talk to each other. But the whole room is like, "What's he telling the motherfucker for?" And this woman's filming it. There was like 80,000 people who viewed it.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't even realize I'm standing. So he's going on this, and then I'm standing behind him. And then he's like, "And this motherfucker, he's a Recon Marine. He shouldn't even be going to the fucking game. I can't believe it." And then he turns around. I was like, "Oh, by the way, I got this paddle for you." And his face just drops. He's like, "Oh, fuck." He goes, "I'm an asshole." He's like, "Yeah, pretty much."
You communist motherfucker.
But the following year, right?
Yeah.
The following year, I made a paddle for another Vietnam vet that goes to our group. And I called him up to present it.
Because I was a Vietnam veteran, and he wanted a Vietnam veteran to give it to him. And
Yeah.
of course, he's just a wonderful guy. He was a recon in Vietnam. And geez, man, what a gentleman. To be able to give him that paddle, and to see the look on his face, he cried.
Yeah.
He wept right there.
I think it was a dry eye in there. I think
No.
everybody was crying that night.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And you can't plan all this. You don't write this down. It's not a script you're following. You're just doing stuff from your heart. And it works so well because we all love it. We like being able to share with each other. If somebody's having a problem, they're allowed to share it. Nobody grades them. Nobody holds a finger out and goes, "Yeah, you fucking idiot." Nobody does that. We all step on our dick with enthusiasm. But there's some really great stories in there. I mean, good God.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate. And Janine is where it all flows from. I met her 5-6 years ago now. Man, the night I met her, she made me cry. I was in the VFW in Fort Lauderdale. I sat at a table with her and cried. She broke my heart. She had my attention ever since then. She's just one of the nicest, caring people in the world.
Yeah, it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years for me, too.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 years.
The first thing we did was do a motorcycle ride to bring awareness to the Buddy Up program. And it was a 26-mile ride, and it was, escorted by police and sheriff. And I was in a Marine Corps motorcycle club at the time, so I went around to all the different clubs, and we got all the clubs to agree to come. We had hundreds of riders. It was really cool. And we went to that park, and we had places, we had guys set up to set up all the bikes. We had trucks, we had food trucks there. It was a great day. And we had a big pavilion, and inside were all these people who came to listen to her. And one of the guys who was there was a film guy. He was a cameraman from Channel 7 News. And he's talking to me, he goes, Jack, I can only give you 20 minutes. I got a busy schedule today. So he's talking to me, and he takes the microphone, puts it underneath of his hand, and he's got the camera. I can see the camera's on, and he's talking to me. And I don't even remember what I said. I was just talking. I said, listen, you need to really pay attention to what's going to go on here today. It's going to blow you away. And 6 hours later, he was still there.
Wow.
Still filming. Yeah. And he said to me, Jack, you ever do anything, you make sure you call me. But one of the things that was so cool was Janine was there. When it was her turn to speak, we had different speakers and different people coming. It was a great day. She had this big elephant, white elephant, and on it in red was PTSD. She goes, it's time for us to talk about the big white elephant in the room. And she threw it up in the air, and it hit and just shattered all over the place and got everybody's attention. And she began to talk about PTSD. And on the wall behind her was all the pictures of all the people she knew who had committed suicide from the military. And of course her son was on there, and lots of other people. And there were mothers there whose sons were on the wall. And it was a very, very interesting day. I mean, just a great day. And so that was how we all started this whole thing about Buddy Up programming. She's worked very hard for this, and she's a caring person. So he and I love doing these because we do it for Janine.
Absolutely.
Not for some young guy yawning in front of us. I'm not gonna forget that, right?
Choke yourself.
Check yourself.
So thanks for joining us for the second installment. Hopefully we'll be back again soon for the third. Have a great Father's Day to all you fathers out there, and see you soon.
Summer 5.